You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Lohman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Lohman.
Welcome to the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because I'm here, your host, Sunny, and I'm here with Doug from theratcap.com. How you doing, Doug?
I'm great. How are you?
You sound great. You sound like you just woke up as usual. I'm live
Possible.
in person. I'm live in person with the other sidekick, Ashley.
Hey.
I'm sitting right next to her.
That's so nice.
We're in the studio together, if you can call her living room the studio. We have given her dogs their penis sticks. So they're busy. They're very, very busy right now. Hey, Ashley, it occurred to me that, do you know that you have a boy's name?
I do?
Yes.
Oh.
And I know this because I read Gone with the Wind.
Oh.
Remember that?
No, I didn't read it.
The major male character in that book is Ashley. And so a lot of times when I've done this since I've known you, I think of you and I go, and I think of Scarlett going, oh, Ashley. She's in love with him. I bet Ashley has never read that book and has no idea that
no idea.
Ashley is a boy's name.
Not a clue.
She has
I thought the main character was Pat.
Pat? You mean Rhett?
I was kidding.
Oh my God. I was about to slap you. Don't disrespect Rhett.
Slap
Baba.
Ashley instead. You're sitting right next to her.
All right. So I was thinking of Gone with the Wind yesterday because did you guys hear that PBS is doing their Great American Read books this summer?
Yeah. Yes.
So they've picked 100 books, and you can go online and vote for your favorite book, which everybody should do because we can't let the leftists have everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
And already, like, a lot of the nominated books are just bullshit. I mean, these are supposed to be like the most influential books you've ever read. Okay.
what's in there?
Well, I mean, some really good books are in here that I agree with, like Anne of Green Gables, Gone with the Wind, Atlas Shrugged, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, stuff like that. But I would say half the books are in there because they were written by a minority. You know what I mean?
Of course.
When half your best books of all time are minorities in a white country, you know that something's been
Right.
skewed.
Yeah.
But Call of the Wild is in there. Other things I think are just people vote for these things even though they suck, like Catcher in the Rye. I didn't think that was a good book. Let's see what else is in here. The Color Purple. I mean, is that really? I guess that's nice for some people. The Count of Monte Cristo's in here. Crime and Punishment is in here. So there's some really good books. Dune. Shout out to the sci-fi fantasy folk.
Dune.
Oh, guess what else? Speaking of fantasy, Game of Thrones.
Really?
Yeah.
That was a book?
Yeah. Are you serious? You
Oh, I
didn't know
thought
that?
No, I thought it was just the TV series.
No, it is. It is. So I've been reading Game of Thrones since I was young,
Oh.
and because that guy writes so slowly. So when I first discovered it, I think I was in my early 20s, and I read the first one, and they're really big books, thick books. And I think I read the first two, like he had two written or something, and then you got to wait 7 years for the next book. And so then the next book comes out, and I read it. But at first I had to go back and read the other two because I'd forgotten what happened. I mean, it's 7 years later, right?
Yeah.
You can't just pick up a character narrative 7 years later. And he does. He picks it right up, so you really have to know what's going on.
Well,
then
maybe
I
it takes you
finished-
7 years to read the book.
Well, no, because I mean, it's not a hard book to read, and it's really good. It's an enjoyable read. And then I finished that one, and then I waited 7 years, and I read the next one. I think their penis sticks are done. Can you hear that barking?
Yeah, you guys need to
Man, Ashley has two dogs. Ashley has a sausage dog, a wiener dog,
Uh-huh.
who's eating a wiener. That's not even a funny joke. And then she has
It's just a fact. It's just a fact.
and then she has a pit bull.
A pit
And
bull.
a pit
Well,
bull.
she's a lab mix.
Oh my god. Every time I say that, she says, "Oh, it's a lab mix." That dog looks like a pit bull, and acts like a pit bull. Like
It quacks like a pit bull.
This lab is not greeting me at the door with licks. This lab, quote unquote, is barking and growling at me until Ashley smacks it.
Well, like a lab and a pit
I know,
bull
she
are just
doesn't
so
really-
diametrically opposed, in character. They're both like
So-
hunters, right?
What, a pit bull and a lab?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're retrieving.
One is a friendly dog, and the other one is like an angry dog, and she has an angry dog. You have an angry dog.
No, I don't.
You didn't see that?
She doesn't know you. You need
Well,
to like give her
I
a little
know.
attention, pet her, and then
I'm afraid of that dog. I'm not petting her.
she would never bite you.
Uh-huh.
She just growl at you.
That's what they said.
What's going on back there? All I hear are dogs.
Well, did you hear? The other one, is a little wiener dog, a little tiny wiener dog.
He's aggressive.
And well, that's interesting that you say that, because I was reading on the news the other day. A woman was killed by a pack of wiener dogs. And that,
Oh no!
I'm not kidding. And that made me laugh so hard because I
Did
know Ashley's
they
little.
ride,
I
did
know
they ride
Ashley's
away in
little.
the chuck wagon?
How do you get killed by 7 wiener? It was 7 wiener dogs.
How do they take
They're
her
so
down?
tiny, Yeah, how do they take
like
her down?
nip you at your ankles, like bite through your Achilles?
I mean,
take
you
down,
could
eat
kick
your
one of
face.
those dogs and really do a lot of damage.
yeah.
So, I don't know, but 7 of them, and they murdered her. They didn't just hurt her; they killed her.
Wow.
What a
Yeah.
horrible way! What was going through her mind when she was being eaten by those dogs?
I know. Ah!
I would be kind of laughing, like I can't believe this is happening. Like, this is not how I imagined. I thought I had some triumphant death, like fighting for freedom or
Right.
freedom or what.
Instead,
Just being,
killed by wiener dogs.
you think you could just punch them? I mean, that's horrible.
It is
But that's kind of like what the gypsies do when you're in Europe. All the little kids come and hug you and attack you, and then they take your wallet. And you could beat up any one of them, but you can't beat up 50 of them.
Well, there's strength in numbers, right?
That's right.
All right. So anyway, you should go over to PBS and vote for Atlas Shrugged or something cool. Don't let the minorities win. Just kidding. Don't let the shitty books win.
Yeah, come on.
Here's one. Donna Barbara by Romula Gallegos.
Oh, yeah, that's a household
Yeah.
name.
Another
I enjoyed
book.
the book more than the movie.
Right. So anyway, yeah, go over there and vote. And Doug, you have a joke for us. Let's hear it.
Well, it's more of a story
Oh,
that
okay.
involves a story about a joke. But so these jokes where it's about a cow. Like, what kind of music does a cow like? Muzak or Muzak.
Sure. It's
You know,
it's like a pun
well-
joke, right?
What kind of movie or what entertainment does a cow like? The movies. That kind of thing.
Okay.
So I was I always sit,
Hilarious, by the way.
thank you. That's all I got. So I sit down with my 7-year-old at night. He loves to tell jokes and riddles at night. This is one of the things we do, and he loves these cow jokes. He says, "What's the cow's favorite part of the airplane?" And I
What?
go, "What?" "The mook pit."
Cute. That's cute for a 7-year-old.
Okay.
So then I said, I think the moo has to kind of refer to something, and then he says, "What's a cow's favorite tree?"
Oh, I thought you were going to say, then he says, well, why do they call it a cockpit? That would have been funny.
No.
Oh.
He said, well, you lost my train of thought, but he said, "What kind of tree does a cow like?" As I was explaining to him the pun. I said what? The mook tree.
Okay. Am I missing something?
The milk tree? Mook tree?
Don't get it, Doug.
Boy, you guys are dumb. Oh my God.
It's not funny just because you put moo in front of it.
That's the point. He's 7. That was his joke. Like he was laughing at all the moo jokes.
Okay.
And then his joke that he came up with was his favorite part of the cow's favorite part of the airplane is the mook pit.
Yeah, I get it. My 3-year-old does that. Okay, let's move on. Just kidding. Your 7-year-old had a joke. It's not funny. But good for him.
Well, the joke is the 7-year-old, not the joke. But okay, you can cut this out later.
Unfortunately, we don't edit.
You know what? You entered Minnesota, which is I call it the literal state, where there's no sense of humor, no sense of sarcasm. So you guys instantly got into the, I don't get it. Mook pit is not a pun on the word moo.
Okay, but like for that to be a thing, you would actually have to have made a funny joke. If you're going to criticize our sense of humor, right?
No, that's the joke that he doesn't. Well, all right, forget it.
I don't get it.
Exactly, you don't get it.
So it must be me. It's not your delivery.
No, like, correct. It's partly my delivery.
All right. Let's move on to, after that awkward joke-telling 5 minutes. We're just going to go over some news stories, and then later, after we've covered a few news stories, we're going to get into the continuing FBI scandal, because I think Doug made a really good point on his Facebook page today. He writes on Facebook at The Rational Capitalist that this FBI scandal isn't just about Trump or the Trump administration. It's really about outsiders versus deep state. And not to be a conspiracy theorist or a tinfoil hat person or something, but I think that's a really good point. We're going to talk about it later. And but first, Starbucks. We've talked about Starbucks a couple of times, and now everybody probably knows that they kicked a couple of black people out of their store. Those black people didn't order anything. The manager kind of justified it with that. She got fired because they're black, and they've done the whole victim rounds on TV. And then Starbucks changed their policy recently and said, okay, we're changing our policy that you don't have to be a customer to sit in our store or to use our bathrooms. And of course, everybody's rolling their eyes and going, oh, that's brilliant. Like, now it's just going to be a place for vagrants and whomever, dirty people, to hang out all day and use the bathroom. And the bathroom will always be occupied by people hanging out in there, maybe doing drugs in there.
Oh, can you imagine having to clean those bathrooms?
No, that would be terrible. I mean, all over the place are these really great clean bathrooms that Starbucks has. As a Starbucks customer, I know that their bathrooms are usually very clean, and it's actually a decent place to go. And now forget it. I mean, forget it.
Given the historic success of public toilets at parks and waysides along the road, I'm really surprised by that anyone has any concerns about this.
Yeah, public toilets are always the best. So they had to come out with a clarification of their policy that basically they've just said, no, we're not going to allow drugs. How they're going to enforce that, I don't know. We're not going to allow sleeping. And what I'm thinking is they're not going to allow actual customers. That's what they've decided. Actual customers are, the clarification is, yeah, we don't want actual customers. So we're going to go forward with this policy. But they say no smoking, no porn, no sleeping, no drugs, no drinking, no disruption, no using the bathroom inappropriately. They have all these rules, and it's like, all right. So good luck with that. Yeah.
This is a sign of a top in the market. I mean, when you see this all the time in companies that apparently are making so much money. Could you imagine a small business owner who's, really trying to hustle to make it? Like just even thinking about something like this, it would be
never, right?
out of my store.
Right.
I got to take care of my customers. Only a corporate leviathan like Starbucks or Google or one of these companies, they're making so much money apparently that they have time to, deal with transgender bathrooms and, firing employees for politically speaking. I mean, I can't imagine being part of a company that's making so much money that you can just afford to shit on 75 to 90% of your customers and with impunity.
Yeah, I mean, and it'll probably be a slow crawl, but I can tell you there's a Starbucks here in Minneapolis that I went into once that people are probably going to accuse me of being racist right now, but people who live in Minneapolis will get this. Some of the coffee shops in Minneapolis have been taken over by what are probably Somali gangs. Gangs run by old men. I mean, it's tribal, right? So there's across from the hospital where I had my baby, so I was going there for checkups and stuff, is a Starbucks, and I go in there. There are no women in there. It's like 20 guys, middle of the day, 20 guys, and I walk in the door, blonde, pregnant, and they all just turned and looked at me with hate, like, what are you doing in our coffee shop, and
Wow.
just mean looks. And I went through the line and I got my coffee, and this is broad daylight this is not a bad neighborhood. This is across from a major hospital. And I walked to my car looking over my shoulder. I was afraid that somebody was going to follow me out and hit me or something, And
Well, that girl got stabbed in Uptown.
Right. I hustled into my car and locked it. I was I felt like I was in a bad neighborhood or something, like scared.
Jeez.
And no one like me will ever go in that coffee shop. I will never go back to that coffee shop. That's a Starbucks. And
Congratulations, Starbucks.
yeah, exactly. Congratulations, Minneapolis. That's not the only Starbucks the kind of Somali tribal people have invaded.
That's
So,
amazing.
Yeah. Did you hear about the Somali scandal here, Doug?
No.
So there's
Which
this.
one?
The daycare one?
Well, yeah, right. Not
The
the
welfare?
one.
The welfare
The
one?
welfare scandal. Yeah. So what has happened here is that here in Minnesota, if you're a Somali refugee and you have a child, you get $300 per week per child for daycare.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
300 how much per week?
$300 per week per child.
What? From who?
From the state government.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I'm gonna move there.
So, yeah, right. Well, you have to also be a refugee. So, or poor. I don't know. You have to qualify. I don't know what the qualification is. So,
That can happen.
shock of the century, they figured out a way to scam this where they would enroll kids in daycare, that they would enroll more kids than the daycare could actually handle, and the kids didn't actually go to the daycare. So the kids were home with their mom, but they were getting daycare money because they enrolled in a Somali-run daycare.
Wow.
Then the Somali would kick back money to the family, right? Or,
Yep.
or somehow, like, there are all these kickbacks going around.
This is not rocket science.
Not rocket science, especially in a community that's kind of insular and nobody's ratting on anybody. So then it became really popular for Somalis to open these daycares. So Somali-owned daycares are like really popular in the city. And this was an open secret. I knew this 4 years ago before I left Minnesota. I knew that they were scamming the daycare welfare that they were getting. And it was considered, everybody knew, but apparently our politicians didn't know, because the governor of Dayton has come out and said he didn't know about it.
It's like no one knew about Andrew Schneiderman or Harvey Weinstein.
Right, no one knew. But what's worse, and what came out recently, is a whistleblower came out. He was a forensic accountant for the state, and he said that they were following up some of this fraudulent. They knew about it, and they were following up what happened to the money. And they're finding out they used to transfer it from Minnesota bank accounts to Somali bank accounts. So it was going to terrorism in Somalia. Well, then the government cracked down on those types of bank transfers. And so they started carrying it out in cash through the airport.
Wow.
And last year, they carried out $100 million in daycare money. And the year before that, $80 million.
And this is going back to Somalia.
Going not to just to Somalia, but to accounts controlled. Well, originally the transfers were going to bank accounts controlled by Al-Shabaab, the terrorist leader.
Nice.
And now we don't know where they're going because it's going in cash. So isn't that fun? We're so lucky that we have these refugees.
And so what's the Minnesota response? Like, oh, geez.
Oh, the Somalis, they're such good people.
Oh, you can't criticize them, me.
Yeah. So that's a little headline for you.
Wow.
The NFL approved a new policy today regarding the national anthem finally. So the policy...
Boy, they were on top of this one.
Oh, my God. Right?
Ooh. Boy, do they act fast. Holy man.
I was thinking that today, too, when I read this. Like, if only they had done something when it first started, it never would have become this big deal.
Of course.
All they had to do was fine Kaepernick, whatever his name is.
Penis stick? They should give a capper dick to the dogs.
Kaepernick lives matter. So, if they'd just done that at the beginning, it never would have spread, you know. And it got to the point where if you didn't kneel, you were now the odd man out. Like, you were the one being ridiculed and harassed if you didn't kneel.
Because you don't have the back of your teammate, you know, or whatever.
You're not woke enough.
Right.
So they've now finally come out with a policy that says you must stand for the national anthem. They voted on it unanimously. And they said if you don't want to stand, you can stay in the locker room during the anthem. But if you come out for the anthem, you have to stand. So that's their new rule. Good for them, eh?
Yeah, well, they, like I said, man, there's Johnny on the spot there. They nipped that in the bud.
Yeah, now that it's so huge, no matter what they do, even this is going to get major flack.
Well, after 2 years of declining ratings, I think they're starting to get a little nervous over there at the NFL.
Right. I think a lot of people were boycotting them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there a different kind of football thing starting?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Did we talk about that already, or is that
I don't
Isn't the guy that McMahon, the wrestling guy? Huh?
It's like extreme football, or
Yeah, he's starting a new league or something, and he's saying it's not going to compete, quote unquote, with the NFL because they're going to do it at a different time. But remember, he tried this. I think maybe it was in the 90s.
Yeah,
he tried this.
I remember that. Yeah,
where it was the guy that ran the World Wrestling thing, and he was trying this kind of crazy NFL thing, and it failed.
Was it XFL? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, I think so. And now he's trying something again.
Well, now it's like more ripe for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are pretty sick and tired of the babies in the NFL. It'll fail.
Yeah, it'll fail.
It'll fail.
Because the NFL isn't just about the game. It's about these teams that, people follow for generations. You can't. It's hard to, or it's possible to replicate that. Really compete with it. If you're a Steeler fan, from the 1970s, it's not so much about the football, like watching the game. It's more about the rivalries and the tradition, the history, and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it'll fail.
I get it.
But it's interesting.
So
you guys don't get it. Don't pretend.
Ashley's a big sports fan. She's a big football fan. Yeah.
She is. Okay.
Yeah, she is. She goes to games. She tailgates.
So I don't know if that makes me a big fan. I just like to go to the games.
Yeah. But listen, you have a jersey. Yeah. I don't. I mean, I don't even know what that means.
That's crossing the line if you've got a jersey.
She has a jersey, so I'd say she's a fan.
Gross. Is it a Viking jersey?
Of course it is, Cheesehead.
Gross.
It's a Brett Favre jersey.
Oh, my God.
Oh!
That's even funnier.
Wow.
Like, you couldn't troll Green Bay harder than that, than to have a Favre Vikings jersey. Take that, Doug.
Yeah. Doug.
Well, unfortunately for you guys, he choked away that championship game, and it was all for naught and set your franchise back 5 years. But good luck. Congratulations on that Favre thing. That was good for you.
All right. I'm going to just end this brawl that we're having now. What?
This could go on for a while.
I think it could. And the problem is I can't contribute. I don't know anything about it.
Feel proud that you can't contribute.
Okay, I'll be proud.
You haven't wasted brain cells on this.
You know, to me, and I'm sorry I'm going to insult every sports fan out there, but to me, it's like a soap opera. You know, you watch All My Children, basically. You follow characters.
Yeah. I've said that.
It's entertainment. It's not.
It's a male soap opera.
It's a male soap opera. And so I don't, and some women like it. I think mostly because their man likes it. But yeah, I mean, I have better things to do.
But I always get a kick out of talk radio type people or the sports pundits on TV who, you know, when some scandal erupts off the field, you know, hey, we should be talking about what's going on in the field. This off the field stuff is a distraction. No, it's not.
It's part of it. It's
that
all
is
part
it.
Of it. Yeah,
That's
these are
the essence
celebrities.
of it. Everyone it's part of the soap opera. It's
That's right.
their lives, what's going on off the field, their girlfriends, they get caught with drugs and, you know, speeding in a Ferrari. I mean,
drugs, beating their wives, beating their girlfriends, beating their dogs,
killing dogs.
God,
yeah,
these people are just I mean, really, they're the worst people. Mm-hmm. Some of these guys.
Yeah, well, it's the equivalent of like the villain in the soap opera, the guy with the eye patch, you know, that has amnesia in the hospital or something, you know.
Yeah, I can't really get into it, but I do see what you're saying. I think that if they don't, these are characters that you have to. It's like reality TV in a way. You have to get into the person playing, and I think that does make you loyal to your teams because you've got these people that you're invested in too. It's not just the team, but the people. And even though I know people get traded, the team still largely is the same every year, and it changes over time. You might get rid of two guys or something, but you know, and then two guys the next year or whatever. But anyway,
it is a story.
Yeah. So I have a news headline that I thought would really interest you, Doug, because you guys may not know this about Doug, but he really likes conspiracy theories, don't you?
No. I like theories. And I like true theories, ones based on fact and evidence. There is not a special class of knowledge called conspiracy theories. There are either good theories or bad theories.
Okay.
I like the truth about what happens. Okay.
Let's say you like exploring these theories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, do you remember back, I don't know, a couple years ago, the American diplomats in Cuba got hit with some kind of weird...
Yes, the sonic...
Yeah, and they got
it
brain
happened
damage.
again today.
In China. Not in Cuba. Not in Cuba.
I know.
What
it's like
the
some sort
hell
of sonic...
is going on, Doug?
It's a weapon. Wasn't there like some sort of sonic weapon in Atlas Shrugged in the novel? What was that weapon?
Project X.
Project X. Wasn't that a xylophone-looking thing?
Yes.
I think it's a Project X. They're like killing people with sound because they did all these Cuban diplomats from the American embassy were seriously injured.
Yeah.
And the Cubans said, "Oh, we don't know what happened. It's weird."
It was like 16 or 17 people, and
yeah.
I mean it was permanent damage and permanent brain damage, and
that's frightening.
I don't get why they're doing it. They're not killing anybody. I guess because it's scary. It's really frightening to me. I wouldn't want to be an American diplomat knowing I could get hit with a sound ray at any time.
Or maybe they just went to like a metal concert or something and they're just making this up.
It's all bullshit.
It was a sonic bomb. No, I don't know. I mean, it's totally science fiction, you know?
Isn't it? And now
because I guess you don't know what's happening. I mean, you're just sitting there and
right.
like your ears are melting or something from this. It's like a dog whistle.
It's like a dog whistle. You can't actually hear the sound. But they did say that they felt a little bit of pressure. Ugh. And they could hear some kind of sound, but they couldn't really hear it. Like maybe it's a frequency they can barely hear. Mm-hmm. And then they feel a little pressure. and it happens over time, and they end up with concussion-like symptoms.
Wow.
So, yeah, really, really scary stuff. And I wouldn't have been so kind of interested in this if it had just happened in Cuba again. But the fact that it has now happened in China, wow, right?
Yeah. Well, it tells you, and again, this isn't a theory. I mean, this is happening. The government someone possesses very advanced weapons that are probably being deployed in some way or tested in some way.
I would say tested. But why would you test it against Americans? Mm-hmm. Especially if you're China and you have billions of people you can just off.
Well, I mean, let's say it happened and, America didn't want to admit that it happened. I mean, it could have been, it leaked out, because if you're the U.S. government and this happens to some of your diplomats, I don't think you're eager to publicize that the Chinese are, or if, let's say it was a sort of a terrorist incident or someone just got a hold of this and just did it. I mean, who knows, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it could be an anomaly. Imagine if something like that became widespread and you can just be sitting around and someone can attack you and you don't even know it's happening.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of talk, these EMP type bombs.
Right.
There's serious attention being paid to that at high levels as far as the threat of one of these bombs taking out our electrical grid and the kind of damage it could do for months or years, if you were to deploy a kind of weapon like that, which isn't hard to do. So, yeah, there's advanced weapons that are pretty freaky.
Yeah, it's pretty freaky. So we'll have to keep our ear on that one. Ha 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 ha. Okay.
Good one.
So let's get into
Mook pit.
Is that a moo pit joke?
Mook pit.
Mook pit. Okay, let's get into the FBI scandal, Doug. You wanna set it up and just kind of remind everybody that what's happening?
Yeah, well, it's hard to know where to start with this because I think some people probably have no knowledge of it or very fairly uninterested in it. So let me just start off by saying, because we don't want to get into, I mean, if we get in the weeds on this, it'll take 5 hours to explain what's going on. So we're trying to keep this high level. But the reason I posted and mentioned this today was I thought Cheryl Atkinson made a great point yesterday. Maybe, I don't know if you have that little clip of what she said.
Do you want me to play that first?
Yeah, play that first, and let's hear what she says because it
without
kind of
any
frames where I'm
context,
going with this.
though, I'm afraid this clip is sort of meaningless.
Okay, so let me just set up her clip because my contention is that what's going on here is way bigger than just Trump. This is not a Democrat Republican.
Well, this being the FBI investigating Trump or spying on him, spying on his campaign. Doing whatever they can to gather information and maybe take him down. I think they even quote developed, this was their insurance policy to try to find information to get rid of him if he did win the election.
Yeah. So, okay. The context here is that there's been, there's obviously, there was this narrative that Trump colluded with the Russians. Which was a very suspicious sort of allegation to begin with that seemed odd and not a lot of evidence for. So now it's turning around and turning out that the real scandal was not Trump's alleged collusion with the Russians, which there's no evidence for, but the fact that this all appears to have been a deep state counterintelligence operation designed to undermine, harass, intimidate, and threaten Trump and his campaign and his administration, which it's done a pretty good job of.
Yeah, I'd say it's at least tied up a lot of energy. It is intimidating. I would say half of the American public, thanks to the media, think that Trump did collude with Russia, even though collude with them to do what? Affect the election. Okay, show me a vote that's been affected. I can't. Nobody can. Okay, so we don't have any evidence of any actual Russian collusion. We have no outcome of any Russian collusion. And it's been 2 years that this investigation has been going on. That's
right. And I'll point you, we'll play Cheryl's clip in a second, but she also has an excellent timeline that she published. Maybe we can publish the link, but she put together a week ago a collusion against Trump timeline. Ooh, that actually goes back to 2011.
Okay, I'm gonna look at that, and I will put that in our show notes on the YouTube notes. And I just want to say too, before we really get into this, Doug and I are not like Trumpers. Like we're not like, I didn't start out. I did not want him to win the primary. I was not a never Trumper, but I was not happy that he won. I'm getting more happy. I think he's doing, some good things. I with this scandal and stuff, I actually think it's probably really good for the country that he got elected and that all of this is getting exposed. So,
well, that segues a little bit into the point I'm going to make, which is that one of the reasons that I like the fact that Trump, as an outsider, got elected was exactly what's happening. We know for years, not only, through Obama, but before, but let's just focus on the last 5 to 10 years, the deep state has gathered more power and more nefarious power to spy on Americans and to do things like the IRS scandal, for example, which is that's nothing compared to some of the other things that were revealed in the last few years in terms of NSA spying, the collection of millions and millions of records, the abuse of the FISA court, which is a foreign intelligence surveillance court.
To really piss off these guys is pardon Snowden. That would really piss off those guys.
Maybe, yeah.
All right, well, let's play this clip.
But my point is that this is a much bigger thing because it's not just Trump. This is exposing a real fault line in the political system, not between Democrats and Republicans, but between this deep state, which really crosses parties. There's deep state types, in the Republican Party. And there's
Bush.
Deep state people, and the Bush types, probably like the Lindsey Graham types. These are the people that are very beholden to interests that favor more government power, more government ability to spy on us, that maybe deceive us to some extent in terms of the threats abroad to justify more government power, more military spending. We think about, and Cheryl, actually, I call her Cheryl because we're on a first name basis.
Because you love her.
I do love Cheryl. I love her.
Let me play this clip and then you can talk about it. But I think that is really the point, is that this isn't a Republican Democrat thing. And I just wanted to make the point. We are not talking about this issue from a pro-Trump, he's our guy. We're really not talking about it from that perspective. Neither one of us was really crazy for Trump early. I think, we're just open to it, and we're open to him, and we're kind of happy with, or at least I am. I shouldn't speak for Doug. I'm happy with some of the things that are going on, but that doesn't mean that I would bring all this up or rail against anybody on behalf of him. And I would certainly criticize him if I thought he was doing something wrong. So we're not bringing this up because we're trying to defend Trump. But anyway, here's Cheryl Atkinson, who's also very nonpartisan, and she's very careful to be that. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, here she is.
Work at CBS, although you were mistreated. Is this the biggest abuse of power you've seen in all your years of reporting?
I would say this is right up there, but I would expand it. It's not just, as I've long said, in my view, what happened during the 2016 campaign. It's why the intel community was so desperate not to have an outsider like Trump come in and nose around what they were doing for the past 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 years, which we're seeing some of that now. I think that's almost a more important part of the story once we get past what happened in 2016.
But the
it's not just because, in my view, these people hated Trump.
I'll give you the last word.
So that's her clip.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a great point. I mean, this, in her timeline, she goes through the intelligence community's expanding power through various laws and various precedents that were set for them to spy on and acquire information about people, as well as the uptick and increase in, FISA applications and unmasking,
Yeah.
and these kinds of things. And when you go through this timeline, which is incredibly detailed, it starts to paint. It paints a picture that if you just hear these claims out of context, you tend to just say, oh well, this side was doing this and this side was doing that. What you see is really this burgeoning deep state and the narrative being created and the setup being created to ensnare Trump and his campaign and to really go after them.
Just because they're outsiders.
Well, I think they were very fearful of Trump in a lot of ways, like she said. I mean, again, when I say that the fault line in our political system is not just Democrat, Republican, it's outsiders versus this deep state. You get a guy like Trump in power, it threatens not only to expose these kinds of more nefarious operations, but, how is that going to affect, the budget for the intelligence agencies? How's it going to affect the budget for military operations abroad? How's it going to affect these various players in the NSA and the CIA? And how's it going to affect the Department of Justice and what his priorities and focus are? I mean, he's a pretty unpredictable guy. And so someone like Hillary Clinton, who's deep state bona fide, I mean, she's lockstep. I mean, she's been lining her pockets.
She is deep state.
She is the deep state. She's the platonic form of the deep state. I mean,
Yeah. She was State Department. She was doing pay to play. She's not being investigated for committing easily provable felonies.
Right. They basically looked the other way
Yeah.
and did everything in their power to exonerate her while going out of their way and actually lying and obfuscating and I think defrauding the courts in order to obtain FISA warrants on Trump associates to wiretap. They were unmasking people in his campaign. I mean, this was a counter, and her latest article, which is really good too. I think she says there's 8 signs of counterintelligence. She documents all the ways in which this is a counterintelligence operation. This is not law enforcement concerned, as they claim about, infiltration of our campaign or foreign agents infiltrating our campaign. This was an all-out counterintelligence campaign designed to frame and to undermine, first of all, to undermine his campaign and ensure that Hillary wins, but in the event that he loses, to have a quote-unquote insurance policy, a term that was used in several different contexts by Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and another academic who coined the term, to ensure that if he did get into power, they would have levers of control on him.
What's crazy about this is Trump's winning. That's what's crazy about this to me, is that the truth is coming out. Every week we're learning about some new thing, and today it's one of Trump's campaign aides was saying that he was approached by an NSA guy.
Yeah, Caputo interviewed this guy.
His name is, he's the guy who was interviewed by Mueller and went on Fox and was saying, that was really intimidating. This is costing me $125,000.
Yeah, he's basically bankrupted.
Well, no, he did a GoFundMe and he raised a lot of money to pay for his legal bills. So I was really glad to see that. Is it Caputo or something?
Yeah, well, his name is
Michael Caputo or something like that.
Yeah, Michael Caputo, who was a Trump or Republican consultant during the campaign, a real ancillary type of figure.
He worked in the campaign headquarters. And he through an intermediary, through a mutual friend, was approached by an NSA, supposedly an NSA guy who was trying to give them Hillary Clinton's missing emails, the 33,000 missing emails. And he said ultimately he turned it down because he was worried that he was going to be maybe doing something illegal. He was worried that he was being sort of set up to do something illegal.
Right.
And because he thought, are these documents classified? Like, what am I
Yeah,
getting?
he told him, just go through whistleblower channels. Don't bother me with this.
Yeah, yeah. So he did the right thing, but that could have been a way to
Well, he told Mueller about this. He told Mueller's team, and he says they could care less. Here he's got a kind of a smoking gun. Hey, someone approached me and offered me 30,000 missing emails. That's kind of a big story. No, well, they ignored it. I mean, he said they could care less. He said they didn't even seem like they were taking notes, which is incredible. And so, that's one story of probably 1,000, that's been revealed over the last few months about what's really going on here. This FBI investigation, this mole, the Stephen Halper guy, who he's been outed as the mole that was in the campaign. What's interesting about it to me, and it partially supports, my theory about how far back this goes, is this Halper guy who was apparently hired and paid over $1 million by the Department of Defense to make contacts with the Trump administration. This is going back, I think, to 2016, where he was speaking with, and I think he paid one of them for a paper. So he was sort of ingratiating himself to members of the campaign as a way to insert himself. And apparently, what for? I mean, what was the point of this guy? They were obviously trying, rather than evidence of a crime and then let's go investigate it, I think they were trying to ensnare these people and entrap them by inserting this guy and having them, him offer them things or talk about things, and then that would be a pretext for them to
if you remember
justify
too, the female Russian lawyer that contacted Trump Jr. was also a setup.
Yeah, it appears so.
Yeah, so I just want to read Trump's tweet today. Look how things have turned around on the criminal deep state. They go after phony collusion with Russia, a made-up scam, which I agree with completely, and end up getting caught in a major spy scandal, the likes of which this country may never have seen before. What goes around comes around. So, I mean, what is amazing to me is that Trump is winning. The only crimes that they have charged anybody with are these pathetic obstruction crimes, or like they got Manafort on something he did 20 years ago or something like that. And, who knows what they're going to do with Cohen.
They're process crimes
Cohen.
to try and squeeze people.
Right.
And make it seem like they're doing something.
I don't know what they have on Cohen, and that has yet to come out. But so far, they haven't had anything on anybody having anything to do with Trump.
Yeah, so now we've gone from Russian collusion to hush money payments to a porn star. I mean, that's where this is going. And meanwhile, we're holding up the entire United States government and threatening an elected president with impeachment over something like that. By the way, I want to mention this Halper guy, to finish my point there. He actually goes back to the 70s. And again, this supports my whole point about this whole deep state fault line. He actually was caught up in an operation that the Republicans initiated against the Carter administration. Glenn Greenwald from The Intercept revealed this recently, that this Halper guy was part of a group that was spying on the Carter administration for Reagan's campaign. And then this guy's was an aide in the Nixon administration. He was part of the Bush-Reagan team, and he also has connections to the Clintons, of course, as everyone does. And now he appears as a paid spy, to try and gather information on Trump. So what is this telling us? We potentially have our federal government and the Obama administration using the resources of the federal government and our intelligence agencies and the power of those agencies to politically undermine and spy on a rival campaign. I mean, that's banana republic. And they got caught. I mean, if Hillary had been elected, no one would ever know about this. And people like me, if we were to talk about it, would say, oh, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist. But the fact that he won is helping to expose it.
You're a theorist.
No, they would say I'm a conspiracy theorist. I would say I'm a theorist.
It's starting to look like the greatest achievement of Trump is just having beaten Hillary.
Yes. Just getting in.
Just getting in, and not her, or somebody like her, even a Republican like Jeb, or somebody who wouldn't have done anything about any of this.
No, they would never have. I mean, they're all deep state type people, and I think what it does is it just opens the door now, and it desensitizes people to the idea that, hey, there are nefarious actors in these agencies. These people are, burrowed into this federal bureaucracy, and they have agendas. And it's not necessarily, these people get into a star chamber and go in a dungeon to plot, the demise of the world. I mean, these are just political actors. They have an agenda. They have a lot at stake. Billions of dollars in some cases. Their careers.
They're sucking money out of the government, lining their pockets, and they want it to keep going.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what they do.
So, I mean, that's not so hard to believe. And I think, it's not hard to believe Obama would use the government against his political enemies. He did it with the IRS.
Yeah, and remember the Rosen case, and even Cheryl Atkinson, remember when they went after the reporter? I think it was was it James Rosen? I think that's his name. They were trying to subpoena him. They actually were trying to persecute reporters.
Right. Cheryl Atkinson.
I think she was part of that.
The thing about Cheryl that's so great is, I mean, what she has shown is, so her computer was hacked, and she said she saw people in her computer while she was on it. Mm-hmm. And she thinks they did that to scare her. And she was at CBS at the time. I mean, this has all been proven that her computer was hacked by the government.
Yeah, she's an investigative journalist at CBS. And
that's been proven.
She was running against.
I'm not saying that's not a conspiracy theory. She has proof that happened. She's suing them, I think. And what I wanted to say about her is, what she's shown is how hard it is for a reporter to be honest and to be not on that side too, and how deeply kind of, I don't know, symbiotic and embedded all these people are in bed together. And part of it is because if you speak out or try to get away from it, what happened to Cheryl happens to you.
She got fired.
And luckily, she's got balls of freaking steel, and she's out there independently now on the internet doing her own show. And, she's probably lost a ton of credibility and money. And in addition to that, she's having to sue the government. So.
Well, what's interesting about her story too is that the opposition to her work wasn't just entirely from the government; it was from her own colleagues in the media and her own supervisors at CBS and elsewhere. Because they are under pressure from the same.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. It's a pressure because look what's happened to her. I mean, if you try to go against them, that's what happens. So
right, the New York Times, NBC, CBS, the big networks. I mean, let's face it. Where does the money come from? I mean, it comes from people that have interests and have a lot at stake. And if those people can be, bring pressure to bear, or don't want an investigative journalist going off in a certain direction that could undermine a political figure or a campaign or administration, a congressman, a senator, whatever, who's going to win that battle? And that's where corruption comes from. And, this is what's being exposed now. And people got to wake up to it. This is not just conspiracy theorizing. This is conspiracy fact.
Yeah. I just hope that Americans do wake up to it and get kind of mad about it because it's pretty outrageous. Yeah. Yeah. On that depressing note, we're going to end the show. We just did a little bit of news there. Go listen to last week's show. We had a long show about the history of immigration. Our special guest was Alex Marriott. I think that was a really good show. Next week, I don't know what we're going to do. We'll wait and see. I'm traveling this week. Next week I'll be home, so it'll be easier for me to pull something together. But that's our show for today. Thanks for joining us. You can become patrons of our show at patreon.com/House of Sunny. I always want to say Patreon. I don't know why.
Yeah, is it Patreon or Patreon? Have we figured that out?
It's Patreon. And every time I say that word, I stumble on it. But okay. So that's where you can become a patron at patreon.com/House of Sunny. And thank you to all of our patrons. We could not do it without you. Literally.
Thanks to all of our patrons.
Thanks patrons. You're in Sunny's Elite Squad if you join up, and you get things like mugs and t-shirts and behind-the-scenes footage that we haven't filmed yet in the entire 6 months we've been doing this because I won't put my face on camera. But that's coming up soon. I'm slowly getting off prednisone, so that's coming. In the meantime, you can just enjoy this radio bliss once a week. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny.